Hello and welcome to KnightHunter Books. Today it's just me, no John, because I'm going to be talking about a book series which I have finished but he has not. And that is Remembrance of Earth's Past, which is the name of the series, which starts with the three body problem, which are all three of them by Cixin Liu. The first and the third were translated by Ken Liu from the Chinese, and the middle book was translated by Joel Martinson. I'm going to keep this review spoiler free, so you can watch this video even if you haven't read any of the books. I'm going to kind of mainly focus on things that I think the series does well and the things it doesn't do well, so that hopefully you can work out if this is something that you'd enjoy. So first I'm just going to tell you the ratings that I gave each of the books. So the first one, Three Body Problem, I gave 4.25 stars, which is a pretty high rating for me. I did really enjoy this. It definitely kicked the series off to a good start. The second book, The Dark Forest, I gave 3.5 stars, I think. Don't feel like it brought everything together quite as well. There were definitely still some really interesting ideas, but the characters were just nowhere near as likeable or as interesting. The final book, Death's End, which I did finally get to after a bit of a gap after the second book. I wasn't sure if I'd continue. I am actually really glad I did. I gave this one 4 stars, so not quite as good as the first one, but definitely an improvement upon the second one. I'm hoping that's not too much of my subconscious saying, I read a 700-page book, it must be good. So overall I did enjoy the series. I'm definitely glad I read it. It's something a little bit different for me. It's probably the first kind of hard science fiction series I've read. And I think I'd describe this series overall, it's definitely epic in scale, although it does mostly focus on Earth. Certainly in terms of time and points of view, it has a very broad scope. I'd say it's also not something I'd consider a light read, probably in a couple different ways, because it wasn't the fastest to read, or there's a lot of very heavy concepts, but I'd say also it was quite a dark book, quite a dark series. Actually I'd go so far as to say it's grimdark. Grimdark science fiction. Not something I've read before, I'm not even sure if it's a thing, but if it's a thing, I think this series would fit in very well there. So I think I'm just going to go into a little bit the things that I thought the series did well and the things that I thought it didn't do so well. So I touched on already a little bit, the main thing that I think this series did amazingly is ideas. Just the originality of the ideas. It's kind of cliche to say so, but kind of mind-blowing. There were quite a few points where I had to kind of just turn around to John and go, oh my god, something's happened and it's just incredible. And they were all ideas which, they make total sense. They weren't anything that I'd have thought of before, but they are actually plausible. The science that he uses is at least plausible enough for me. I've got a degree in physics. The other thing I think they did really well was just kind of mystery elements. I think that's the only way I probably could have actually got through a series this long, was all the plot twists, all of the not knowing what's going to happen next, and they were just pretty constant. There was always, certainly toward the second half of the final book, it was just always something was changing, something was being revealed. I also quite liked the writing style. I did find it quite easy to read, so also I have great respect for the translators there, and he did manage to get across the concepts for me. Although I do have a friend who doesn't have a science background, and she said upon reading the first book there was a bit where the science lost her. So I think it probably would be easier to read if you do have a science background or you just read a lot of science fiction. Another quite specific thing I liked about this series was that there are a lot of big events that affect a lot of people. One thing he did do was actually imagine those people, those groups, complexly. So there's very few points where everyone has the same reaction, which I quite like. So you've got governments and kind of groups of people splitting into factions and having very different interpretations of what's going on and ideas about what should be done about it. This does lead me quite nicely into actually one of the things I think he does less well, which is individuals, which I don't feel like the individual characters were imagined complexly. I didn't find them very believable. A lot of them had motivations which were not really made clear, and I think there were a lot of stereotypes being used. There were a lot of people that never really had anything to make them stand out from the crowd, and there are quite a few different points of view in this series. Another thing I'll say is that actually a lot of the characters weren't especially likeable either, which I know was probably intentional, but if that's something that you struggle with, then I'd watch out for that. Another more specific thing that I didn't like so much in the series were the female characters, which I think is just an extension of all the characters. And the first book was actually okay with this, because it did have quite a few different female characters and they did react in different ways and they had their own personalities. In the second book, you had hardly any, and the only ones that existed were love interests, but without really any personality at all. Then in the final book, you do have a female point of view character, but she's very stereotypical. She has all of the flaws which are always associated with women. Weakness, caring too much, being emotional. And there were also quite a few other just general comments in the book that made me think that the author might have quite old-fashioned ideas about gender. There were parts that slipped through about, you know, finally men could be real men and things like that that just made me cringe a little bit. And especially seeing as a lot of this book is set very far in the future. Like, it spans quite a lot of time and you don't really... You see gender touched upon a little bit, but it tends to revert to a norm that I think we're already moving away from. The final point I'll make that I didn't like so much tended to be the pacing, so that's just with the longer books. I feel the author did take a few liberties about wanting to explain something really in depth, particularly with the science. Such as there was one section in the final book where the author starts telling a story within a story, and that story is not overly connected to what's going on outside, which meant it did mess with the pace for me. The books also, as well as moving between different points of view, also dip into history books, which is a really interesting way to explore how these events were thought about, especially after the fact, but that doesn't make it the lightest of reads. So overall, I think I would recommend this series, especially if you're someone that really enjoys kind of hard science fiction, ideas-based books. However, if you're someone who really looks for characters to be driving their story and character-based books, I'm not sure you'll get along with this one. So if any of you have actually read this series, I'd be really interested to, well, just chat about it really, because John hasn't read it, so I've got no one to talk to about this series. So maybe put what your favourite idea was in the book, or if you agree or disagree on the points in which it did well or didn't do well for you. Thank you for watching, I'll see you again soon.